microphones aren't on.
Good morning, folks. Wanted to ask, given that we are at Temple Beth-El, would love to ask Rabbi Lena Morit to lead us off.
I want to welcome everybody to this house of God. Master of the universe, Ribbono Shel Olam. It's been a rough couple of days. People are really hurting. People are afraid. But this morning we're grateful to gather with others who get it. We who live in the tension between the eternal and the transient, the universal and the specific, the theoretical and the practical, we thank you for bringing us among friends and partners. You've deployed us to work as your agents, and we live to connect others to their highest aspirations. We serve by listening with our hearts. Let us do that today. Author of creation, Yotzer HaKol, thank you for deploying us to this city where the diversity of your light shines like the facets of an intricately carved gem. Here, it's not about tolerance. We love it here because it gives us a front row seat to the different ways that you've loved us into being. Help us to use that light and that love to reconfigure grief and fear into possibility and connection. Master of all flesh, you've created us such that we're complex creatures. We need reminding that at our core we're part of the divine oneness of all, and we can't always see that so clearly in the middle of trauma. Omnipresent one, Hamakom, help us remember that the truth is more complicated than a soundbite or a headline. You've got the corner on the market of truth. We just sometimes get glimpses of pieces. Help us remember, I can affirm your truth without denying our own. Help us remember, I can affirm your story without denying our own, because God, I don't need to remind you, you know we have stories. The fallout from those stories are seared in our DNA. God, you know we seek justice, we seek fairness, acceptance, love, the safety of home, shalom, salam, peace. And we're bewildered and reeling as our neighborhoods and our country and our world is changing quickly before our eyes. Our worlds are getting hard to recognize, and God, that messes with our heads. You didn't program us to manage that so well. But you, source of strength, Makor Koach, you programmed us with hope, with yearning, the will to strive, to connect and defy barriers to our life force. And we feel the love and the goodwill around us, but we don't know what to do with the shadows that we know that are lurking now and around every corner with words of hate and with guns. Creator of all flesh, Ruach Kol Basar Ish, you cry along with us when blood is shed, horrified when life is taken in your name. Our people are being targeted, killed. But you know that we're not here today just because Jews were killed. We're here because we know that when one life is taken, the whole world is taken. Because today, hatred grows unabated. Something's been unleashed that sends the insane message that it's okay, or please, God forbid it, normal. No, it's not. Healer of the brokenhearted, Harofei l'shvorei lev, We're here today to witness the pain in one another's eyes and hearts. We're here to affirm one another's fears, stories, history, humanity. We're not here today just to mourn, but to seek change, connection, possibility. Today, as we do every day in Jersey City. So, maker of peace, creator of all, Oseh Shalom, let us not be manipulated by incendiary stories that sow fear and anger and divisiveness, especially when they obscure the fuller truth. Let us be kind to ourselves as we reel from this trauma. Let us speak up for who we are as the city and the country we know we are. Be with us, God, as we catch our breath and secure our footing. And let us turn to one another as we have, as we do now, as we live now, as we will continue to do. Help us lead with this story, your story. Let us say, I want to thank all of you for being here, and I want to especially thank and acknowledge Governor Murphy, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, Senator Menendez, Congressman Sires, Congressman Pascrell, Senator Cunningham, Assemblyman Chiravalotti, Assemblywoman McKnight, Mayor Fulop, County Executive DeGuise, Sheriff Shalari, Mayor Turner, and Councilman Lavarro. We are honored by your presence and by your care and by your service. So I'd like to hand this over, please, to Senator Sandra Cunningham.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful prayer. Thank you for that wonderful prayer. I am honored to be here today, and I pray also to God. I pray that today we come here with an open heart. We come here with an open hand. We come here with an open feeling of courage and belief and faith. Jersey City is a great city, one of the greatest cities in this country, and we're proud of it every day. And we who live here love it. We who live it respect ourselves and our great city. So I'm honored that we're here today, and hopefully this is the first step in moving towards helping to fill our hearts with love, helping to fill our open hands with the hands of someone else with love, and most important, to open with a feeling of courage and strong belief in what we're doing here today. I think I'm supposed to introduce our mayor, one of the greatest mayors in the state of New Jersey, Mr. Stephen Fulop.
Thank you, Senator. I want to echo Senator Cunningham's sentiment, but first I want to say thank you to Governor Murphy and the Attorney General, who's here as well. Their leadership over the last 3 days has been second to none, and the amount of resources that they've given to Jersey City we surely appreciate, and we know that we're better off because we have you at the helm. You know, to echo some of the sentiments on the diversity here, you know, I think there's a good takeaway from this regards racism and anti-Semitism, because Jersey City has always prided itself on being the golden door to America, the most diverse city in the country, a place that since its existence has prided itself on diversity. And that diversity has changed over the couple of years, whether it's Irish and Polish and Italian to being Egyptian and Pakistani and Orthodox Jewish, but we pride ourselves on that diversity. And diversity is no stranger to anybody in this community, and if anti-Semitism and hate and racism can exist in a community that is so familiar with diversity, the takeaway is that it can really exist anywhere. And so it's going to be a long, long road back, and it's going to take a lot of healing and a lot of time. And I think the reason that we're here is because every single person at this table and in this room has a role to play in that. The only way that we're going to get back to being to where we know we should be as a community, with one community, is by working together. So again, I just want to say thank you to Governor Murphy and to the leadership down in Trenton, and I'm going to turn it over to our governor.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you for your words and leadership. Rabbi, when you say rabbi in this room, about 50 folks turn around. So I want to say in particular to Rabbi Morit for hosting us so graciously at Beth-El. We spoke on the phone the other day, and I'm honored to be with you. And I want to say right back to you, Mayor Fulop, your leadership has been exemplary in an extraordinarily challenging time. So to you and Rolando and the rest of the council, and I'll come back to the Mike Kelly and the police force in a moment, but great leadership and deeply, deeply respectful of that leadership in a very difficult week. I won't reiterate the acknowledgement of the cavalcade of elected officials, but I'm incredibly honored to be here today and to be with them, as well as a rainbow of faith leaders, which speaks more than any of us could possibly speak to the diversity which we wear as a badge of honor. I want to also add to the rabbi's acknowledgement several members of our administration. The Attorney General of the great state of New Jersey has done an extraordinary job on this matter, as he does on every matter. Grabir Graywal is with us, the Superintendent of the State Police, who have been at his side every step of the way, Colonel Pat Callahan, and the Director of Homeland Security and Preparedness, Jared Maples. I'm also honored to be joined today by the First Lady, Tammy Murphy. Steve alluded to this. We are in the most diverse American state. We are in the most diverse county of the most diverse American state, and we are in the most diverse city in that county, in that state, of any city in America, not just in New Jersey. And so an attack on one community in this state, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be the Jewish community, regardless of what it is, it's an attack on all of us in this city, in this county, in this state. We rise and fall as one family. And so I think it's particularly poignant and timely that we are here with this extraordinary representation in the same week of an extraordinary tragedy. So before we go on, I think we owe it to the lives who were lost to acknowledge them and perhaps have far be it, this is above my pay grade as a non-faith leader, but I think we should, before we go further, have a moment of silence for those who we lost. Detective Joseph Seals, who was an extraordinary member of the New Jersey Police Department. Mindy Ferencz, we just sat Shiva with her husband and her son and her dad and her brother. Moshe Deutsch, who was visiting from Brooklyn, who was laid to rest. And Miguel Douglas Rodriguez, who worked in the bodega, has an extraordinary story. The Attorney General and Colonel were with his family yesterday, an extraordinary story, an American story. Let's all take a moment in silence for the four of them. God rest their souls. A couple of other acknowledgments. I said this on Tuesday. I've said it every time I've written anything or opened my mouth. I know Mayor Fulop has and our colleagues, elected officials all over the state. None of us who do not put the uniform on every day and are a man or woman, a member of the community of law enforcement, can understand what it's like to put that uniform on and go out there every single morning, prepared to face the unknown, prepared to do what it takes, including in this case, to give of one's life. God bless our members of law enforcement in so many communities, counties, state police, New York, NYPD, federal brothers and sisters helped, but it began, let there be no doubt, with the Jersey City Police Department. We met with many of them this morning, some of whom are still wounded, but let's not forget it was members of law enforcement who contained this from being a far bigger tragedy, Steve, as you've said on many occasions this week, and it began with the Jersey City Police Department. Again, we mourn the loss of life. Let's keep those little kids, whether it was at Sacred Heart or upstairs at that synagogue in the back room where so many of us have seen, or in schools around Jersey City who were locked down for hours upon end, those little blessed ones, their teachers, their moms and dads. Let's keep them in our prayers. Let's make sure that they get the counseling and the hand-holding that they need and deserve. And if you haven't been to the scene of where this all awful stuff unfolded, the proximity of a couple of these schools, they could not have been any closer to what was unfolding. I want to thank explicitly again, as I have our federal partners. I know the Attorney General would want me to do that, FBI and ATF in particular. I thank President Trump directly on Tuesday night, and to his enormous credit, offered any of the resources that we need to turn over every single stone until we ultimately get all the answers we need, and then prepare us for a better and brighter future. It's an investigation that's ongoing, so I will not speak to that. I'm not responsible for it. The Attorney General and our federal partners are. But let there be no doubt, we saw hatred on Tuesday. We saw particular hatred toward our Jewish brothers and sisters and toward members of law enforcement. And I think the reason we're gathering today is not just to acknowledge that sad reality and memorialize and celebrate the lives of those we lost, but to come together and find as much common ground as we possibly can, so that light wins out over darkness, so that love wins out over hate, and finding that common ground. Achieving that extraordinary balance. I think it was Reverend Jesse Jackson who originally said, I'm sick of hearing about the melting pot. I think, because that implies that we're all smushed into each other. And I think Reverend Jackson's the one who said, I much prefer the vegetable stew that's simmering on the stove for hours upon end. Senator Cunningham will remember this, where it is all in complete harmony, and it tastes, the longer it simmers, the better it tastes and the better it fits together. But the carrots always taste like carrots, and the potatoes always taste like potatoes. So let's achieve that extraordinary balance that New Jersey almost always does achieve, where we celebrate, we rise and fall as one family, and yet at the same time, we have particular pride in the community from which we come. And I think that's the balance that we so often get right in New Jersey. I'd say righter than any other American state, but that we desperately need to regain as we go forward in the days ahead. I want to say one thing, particularly with the cameras, and then I'm going to turn it over to others to give their thoughts. If anybody out there, whether it's a private school, whether it's a place of worship, a community of faith, a community center, has any question about their own security, please go on to www.njhomelandsecurity.gov, www.njhomelandsecurity.gov. I'm proud that over the past couple of years, we've put a lot more resources into protecting communities of faith, religious schools, community centers, but we have to bat 1,000. And I want everybody to go on that website if they need be, and you should click on the Interfaith tab. And if not, Jared Maples, raise your hand, please. The Director of Homeland Security will be here afterward, and you can get to him with any questions or concerns you may have. We're joined by a cavalcade of elected officials. I'm not sure all of us are going to speak, but a few of us are. Again, I can't thank you, Rabbi, for hosting us. I can't thank all of the faith leaders, elected officials, community leaders from Jersey City, and in some cases from afar, who have gathered here today, and for all that you do to help us come together, to find that common ground, to rise as one New Jersey family. Bless you all. It is my extraordinary honor to introduce, for some words, a courageous leader, Hudson County's own U.S. Senator Bob Menendez.
Thank you, Governor. Let me thank you, Rabbi, for hosting us at Temple Beth-El. And Governor, thank you for bringing us together in leadership to both heal and find a better pathway towards a better future. I just wish it wasn't under such tragic circumstances. I won't mince words. The acts that took place in Jersey City earlier this week was a vile act of anti-Semitism in its most despicable form. In recent years, we've seen anti-Semitism raise its ugly head across our country, in Charlottesville, in Pittsburgh, in Poway, and more. And so it's sad to add Jersey City to that list of cities, one of the most diverse and tolerant cities in the nation. But this city is resilient, and it will overcome these dark days. I know that we cannot express our sorrow for the lives that were lost sufficiently, and to their families, from Mindy Ferencz and Moshe Deutsch to Miguel Douglas Rodriguez, nor can we truly express our sadness for the family of Detective Joseph Seals, who not only spent his life, but gave his life defending his community and his country. And that's the other part of the tragic circumstances here. Anti-Semitism, but also the vileness towards those who wear the uniform every day and protect us. His sacrifice reminds that every day that our police officers put on a uniform and risk their lives for perfect strangers ahead of their own. And it is only sometimes in moments of tragedy, like now, that we remember that incredible sacrifice that they do each and every day. People of all backgrounds know, as I have lived in this county all of my life, that Jersey City is an incredible community amongst many incredible communities in a diverse county. I come from part of that diversity. We also know that at times the dark angels in people come forward. And while we are focused on the tragedy that took place here, I hope we are reminded that hatred very often rears its face in many different ways. In this case, it was an act of anti-Semitism and anti-police bias, but in other cases, it could be against a Muslim, it could be against a Hindu, it could be against a Coptic Christian, it could be against just about anyone. I am reminded, as the author of New Jersey's Bias Crime Law, what gave rise to that law. It was here in Jersey City and in Hoboken that Indian Americans were being attacked by an infamous group called the Dot Busters. And at the end of the day, it was that community that came forth to us and said, we're being hurt, we need help. And we found that there was no law that actually dealt with the crime of bias in terms of setting a higher penalty. And that gave genesis to New Jersey's bias crime law, one of the first in the nation. It also gave me impetus when I went to the Senate to help pass the Matthew Shepard law that ultimately deals with questions of hate based on race, religion, ethnic origin. And I will just simply say we cannot eradicate the hatred in one's heart through a law, but we can send a societal message that it's not acceptable. And today we join together to send a societal message that this type of bigotry, this type of anti-Semitism, this type of anti-law enforcement effort, this type of prejudice is not acceptable in our society. And I just hope we'll hear from our faith leaders about how we can find ways to build the bridges, to strengthen our relationships with our communities in a way that doesn't require a law, but at the end brings us closer together. And in that regard, whether it is when we had faith institutions under assault, we found federal dollars with my colleagues to help protect those institutions. But if we need new legislation to strengthen the consequence, to send a societal message that is even stronger, that acts against an individual because of their race, their religion, their ethnic origin, or for any other purpose of bias, then we will do so. And the last point I would make is that we seek to come together in moments of tragedy. I just think we need to work to come together in moments in which we are not in tragedy. And to also do something. New Jersey has one of the toughest gun laws in the nation. Therefore, it has one of the lowest rates of death by a gun. But when other states in the country allow guns to be easily sold, and then they come into our state, all of those toughest laws, don't achieve the goals that we want. That is why I know my colleagues and I are continuing to fight in Washington to change that reality. And I hope that from this tragedy, we will make a living commitment to those who lost their lives so that their lives will not have been in vain. Thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. We've got a lot of folks in the elected officials category here today, but I'd love to get brief comments from a few more, and then we'd love to throw it open to our clergy leaders and faith leaders for a discussion as to how we can find that common ground and make sure that light wins out over darkness. I'd like to ask Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver to offer a word.
First of all, I guess you know that by my presence here, I certainly offer my heartfelt condolences to the Jewish community of Jersey City. Jersey City is part of my DNA. My grandparents came here from South Carolina in 1929. They brought my 2-year-old mother here in 1929. This is a community that I know, and I know generations of the people that live here. I know that this is a very spiritual community, be it Catholic, Episcopalian, be it Muslim, be it Hindu, and I know and am aware of the multiplicity of ethnic groups that call Jersey City their home. What occurred here was a heinous, despicable act. It reminds me of the 5 African Americans who gathered in Mother Beth-El Church several years ago at prayer meeting, and their church was violated, and all 5 members, including the pastor, was killed. We must move forward and work together after this roundtable to stamp out ignorance, because it is ignorance which leads to these types of vile acts. I grew up in a community that was both African American and Jewish. I lived across the street from a rabbi with 5 children. I want you to know that in the African American community, there is respect for the Jewish community. You bring a lot to our neighborhoods. You bring a lot of vitality to places all over this state. And I want us to walk away, not just today, but as we move forward in the future, knowing that you are embraced and loved in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you very much for those powerful words. Before we throw it open, I'd love to ask Congressman Sears and Congressman Pascrell to offer a word.
Thank you, Rabbi, for hosting us. Governor, Senator Menendez, Mayor, I know you're going through very difficult times. Your great city, my colleague, and all the other people that are here present. You know, I'm sitting here and thinking, my family and I came to this country 57 years ago. We settled in this county. We helped make the diversity that makes this county strong, makes this state strong. I grew up, Jews, blacks, Spanish, Italians, Irish. I never gave it a thought. I went to school a few blocks away from here. I never gave it a thought that they were that different, that we have to hate each other. I don't know where we went wrong that all of a sudden, just because you have a different religion, that you come from a different place, we have this hatred. You know, I try to think. It's just, I just don't know how it got to where we are today. Now, we have a police officer who left 5 children growing up without a father. We have a Jewish community mourning, a community that came to Jersey City and was building. I really fear for the future if we don't change the direction that we're going. And I think it's a lot left to us to try to set this straight, that just because you're a little different, you're not less than anybody else, and you should not be accepted. So I really wish I had the answer. And maybe the answer is right here with the diversity that we have here. And we go out in the community and speak and talk and educate. That there's a lot of strength in diversity. So, thank you, and my heart goes out to the family, those who lost loved ones. You know, and I'll just make a final observation, and I apologize, Governor, for taking it. You had a Jewish supermarket, and you had an Ecuadorian working in that supermarket who also passed away. Doesn't that tell you about love and working together and how everybody came together in such a place and in such a tragedy? It's just, I just don't know, and I wish I did. Thank you, Governor.
Congressman, those powerful words. May I ask Congressman Pascrell to offer a word, and then I think we'll throw open to a discussion with our faith leaders and other representatives with us. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Myself with the words of Bob Menendez in Albio's series. If you remember, Governor, just a few weeks ago, we had a couple of panels on extremism in our society. I always like to get down to brass tacks. Primary thing is that my hearts go out to the families of Detective SEALs and members of the Jersey City community and on the people who are going to bury us from Patterson. So, we're going to pick apart everything that happened in this case. We'll start with the weapons that were used, the people that used them. We will go to what the response was to this tragedy. We'll look at that very carefully and the aftermath. Jersey City, from what I've read and heard, and I know, couldn't have done a better job. But this does not bring the people back to life. And so we've been grappling with this extremism for 12 years. And it is the source of not only hatred, but of violence. And Albio's right. If we don't do something about it yesterday, it's going to continue. And it has ugly heads all over the place. Extremism and violent extremism is at the center of much of the death in this society. Take a look at the numbers. And if we don't come together as a community then we're just going to be numb to these consequences that we see day in and day out. Wallenberg said, you know, they came for this group, then they came for that group, then they came for me. So we're all involved, whether we like it or not. I want to commend also our state police and our Homeland Security state agencies that have responded strongly. But I want to get down to the nuts and bolts of this thing. That's what I believe in. That's what I've worked on all my life. Because otherwise, we accept it and it continues. Our sorrow passes quickly. And this is serious, Governor, and I think you appreciate it. And I know the mayor appreciates it. And my good friend Sheila appreciates it. The hour has passed. And how we respond will tell us who we are. Like a lot of other things now that's going on. So my deepest condolences to the Jersey City community. And thank you. The law enforcement in responding in the way that it responded. And by the way, the weapons that were used in this dastardly act of hate, that's why the police are outmanned and they're outgunned. And if you disagree with what I just said, then I've lost out in the 12 years I've worked on this stuff. Thank you, Governor.
Any of us will disagree with that. Before we throw it open, a couple of brief comments. Number one, another category of folks with us today are brothers and sisters in organized labor, and I appreciate them being here, including Hudson County's Central Labor Council head, Barry Kushner, and his colleagues. Secondly, guns have come up a couple of times. I just want to give a huge shout out of thanks to Senator Menendez, Congressman Sires, Congressman Pascrell, for fighting the good fight, because I'm not referring to the investigation at all, but the chances are 80% likely that the guns used in this awful tragedy came in illegally from outside of New Jersey. So we have the strongest gun laws in America. That's the good news. And there's a real effect from that, and that's a good thing. But when you've got 80% of your gun crimes committed with guns that come in illegally, the sheriff knows this from out of state, we need national legislation. We formed States for Gun Safety with about 8 states now, including New York and Pennsylvania, and that's a good thing. That's a start. We can share intel, information, research, but it's nothing like having national gun legislation. So I want to thank in particular our federal representatives for continuing to fight the good fight to help us achieve that ever elusive dream. Because New Jersey, I'm going to make a statement that I think is defensible. New Jersey will be the biggest winner of any American state if we get federal gun legislation. So with that, may I ask, again, we don't have a tremendous amount of time, but the very fact, look at the diversity of religions, look at the diversity in every respect represented at this table with us. That speaks volumes to not only who we are, but our resolve and our commitment to get to a better place, that love wins out over hate, that lightness wins out over darkness, and would throw it open for comments and suggestions on how we can find that common ground, regain our strength, and get to a higher and better place.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone may want to, just for the benefit of everyone out here, may want to introduce themselves as they speak.
Rabbi Moshe Shapiro, Chabad of Hoboken and Jersey City. Jersey City, a place that so many of our grandparents, well, at least my grandparents, I can't speak for anyone else, but I know a lot of people that came to this beautiful land through Ellis Island. So when I bring my children to the beautiful Liberty State Park, I point out and I said, that's where Bubby and Zadie came. This country welcomed my grandparents and millions of immigrants right here in Jersey City. So how could a country and a state and a beautiful city end up with such a terrible tragedy? As a Chabad rabbi, I can only echo what I've heard so many times from my leader, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson.